Imagine you kill dozens, maybe hundreds of people, not because you're a psychopath, but because that's your job. You're a medieval warrior. You're rich, you're powerful, and you're absolutely terrified you're going to hell. So what do? You write a check to monks, violence funded prayer, prayer laundered violence, and that exchange created one of the strangest economies in European history. To understand this deal, we need to understand both sides of it. Let's start with the warriors. Early medieval Europe, roughly the 6th through 10th centuries, was a society organized around warfare. The historian Gregory of Tours put it bluntly: success was impossible without inflicting pain. Warriors accumulated wealth through conquest, land, serfs, coins, war booty, but they also accumulated sin. And here's what separates them from modern elites who might feel a twinge of philanthropic guilt. These warriors weren't worried about their reputation. They were worried about their souls. Eternal damnation wasn't a metaphor to them. It was a destination. Hell was as real as the battlefield they just walked off. They had blood on their hands, gold in their coffers, and an overwhelming need for someone, anyone, to intercede with God on their behalf. Now the other side. From the late 6th century onward, monasteries spread across rural Europe. St. Albans in southern England, Jarrow in Northumbria, home of the great scholar Bede, Fulda in central Germany, Reichenau, perched on an island in Lake Constance. These weren't just quiet retreats. Monks devoted their entire lives to prayer. And in the logic of the period, that devotion accumulated vast reserves of spiritual energy. Think of each monastery as a kind of spiritual power plant, generating intercessory prayer around the clock. Intercessory prayer means prayer offered on behalf of another person, specifically for the salvation of their soul. That's the product. And there were eager buyers. Warriors had sins, monks had prayers. A natural symbiosis emerged. Donations flowed in one direction: land, money, serfs, coins, war booty, and intercessory prayers flowed back. This was the spiritual economy, a transactional exchange system where material wealth bought spiritual services. And it wasn't charity. This wasn't a tax write-off. This was fire insurance for hellfire. Warriors donated because they genuinely believed those prayers could pull their souls out of damnation. Monks accepted because those resources sustained their communities and their mission. Both sides believed in the deal. Both sides needed the deal. The spiritual economy wasn't cynical. It was perfectly logical within the worldview of the period. So far, this sounds like a clean exchange: sins for prayers, gold for grace. But here's where it gets complicated. As monasteries grew wealthy, they became too important for kings and nobles to leave alone. Monasteries that began as refuges from worldly power got absorbed back into it. Take Fulda and Reichenau. By the height of their influence, entry into these houses required noble lineage and a substantial family endowment, an endowment being a donation of money or property to an institution, typically preserved as principal, while income funds the mission. Administration fell to high-ranking families. The institution, designed to escape the world, became entangled in it. Monks had renounced wealth, but wealth hadn't renounced them. Poverty gave way to vast landholdings. Openness gave way to aristocratic gatekeeping. Spiritual leadership gave way to political obligation. The paradox of monastic success: the better the system worked, the more it contradicted its own founding ideals. Donors didn't just want prayers, they wanted those prayers to happen in magnificent settings. Crude wooden churches gave way to grand stone churches, dormitories, and refectories, the communal dining halls of monastic life. The logic was straightforward. If spiritual power is real, it should be housed in beauty. Patrons funded physical grandeur not for vanity, but for efficacy. They believed better surroundings produced better prayers. More worthy buildings meant more powerful intercession. More powerful intercession meant a better chance of escaping damnation. Every carved column, every stained glass window, every stone archway was an investment in spiritual output. The patronage dynamic turned monasteries into some of the most impressive architectural projects in early medieval Europe, all funded by people desperate to save their souls. Now, if this dynamic sounds familiar, patrons funding beautiful institutions whose mission they believe in, that's because it is. The medieval cloister and the modern university quadrangle share the same DNA. Both are inward focused, both are communal, both are identified with the institution, both are dedicated to activities believed to benefit society, and both are funded by external patrons who want the mission housed in worthy surroundings. A medieval nobleman endowing a monastery and a modern billionaire endowing a university library are performing the same structural act, and the currency changed, the architecture evolved, but the patronage dynamic, outsiders funding enclosed communities of specialists, has persisted for over 1,000 years. The monks wanted to leave the world behind, but the world followed them, carrying bags of gold and a guilty conscience, and that tension between spiritual mission and worldly power, it never really went away. It just changed its clothes.